live book of life review. Here it is. Book of life in 105 weekly parts, part 48. There's a picture. The illustration on the front cover is a human face that's lit up by an electric light bulb. Hi. I'm not going to be answering many questions tonight. I'm just doing a live review of a magazine. I'm pretty sure I am. I don't think I've reviewed this edition of it before. Who's David? Right. That's what's going to be next week's. It will take the 6-year-old owner of this assortment of objects to explain how he manages to cram them all into his pockets and how many different uses they have. Next week's Book of Life describes the intriguing life of a 6-year-old. I'll show you maybe play button this. I'll show you where it is. It's there. There it is. Presented to Philip Dalton, 1,000 subscribers, YouTube. See? Now you've seen it now. Let's get back to what I set out to do, which is reviewing the magazine. Oh yeah, thanks. Thank you. It's Halloween night tonight, isn't it? Right. Oh, you probably... Oh, don't pull any punches, will you? Hey? I don't live in a house anyway, I live in a flat, not a house. Yes, I got it from YouTube. Let's go. Have a brief run through of the contents of the magazine. You can get these magazines from eBay. Human mind, the artist in us all. What happens when a creative mind conceives a brilliant idea? Is it divine, inspirational, some purely human miracle of the mind? All of us have imagination. Indeed, life would be drab without it. But what makes the mind of the artist so much more creative than that of other mortals? Life together, Grundy or Guardian. Every society wields some form of censorship. But in this more permissive age, the value is increasingly being questioned. Its value is increasingly being questioned. New forms of mass media mean new problems too. Should films be prevented from offending the most delicate conscience? Does violence on television make children violent? It's not a book, it's a magazine called medicine of man, aid for the addicted. Drugs can cure disease. They can also, when abused, cause misery, degradation, and death. Helping the drug addict fight his dependence occupies a great deal of time and demands more than a little patience. Drug treatment centres help addicts regain the self-respect they have lost. The other man's poison. Eating fish brings one person out in blisters. Another cannot use ordinary cosmetics without suffering an unpleasant rash. They are allergic. What causes this sensitivity to normally harmless substances? How can the allergic patient avoid trouble? What treatment can the doctor give? The child in his world. Problems of learning. A patient feels ashamed and puzzled when reports of his child's progress at school read failure. Often a child fails because he can't see his lessons properly. Or perhaps when he was beginning to learn basic skills, he missed one vital point. If his problem isn't diagnosed, he may never catch up. The embryo becomes a baby. A woman who is 2 months pregnant has probably only just received final confirmation of her pregnancy from her doctor, yet within her womb her child is already a complete miniature human being with all its organs and tissues. This article tells you how the most important parts are formed. The artist in us all. In René Magritte's painting, Time Transfixed, the creative imagination has transformed the world of solid objects into a dream. See that? Look. See what is painted there. The artist in us, human mind, the artist in us all. Creative imagination is something we all have to have to some degree and should be glad of. Is it a gift, a divine inspiration? What sets the artist apart? We have in this modern world machines which can solve problems of the utmost complexity at speeds comparable to that of light. They can make light of the millions of equations repeated n times, which are presented to them for every second of a week's journey into outer space. We are impressed by the intellectual achievement of the men who made these machines and by what seems to be the intellectual achievement of the machines themselves. George Bernard Shaw was once teased by G.K. Chesterton, who was enormously fat. "My God," he said, "you look as if you have been through a famine." Shaw answered him, "And you look as if you've caused one." that was a good one, isn't it? That's a good one, isn't it? Of course, we laugh at Shaw's quick reply, impressed with his famous ability to turn an answer in the amusing way. We admire it as an intellectual achievement, but it seems of a more common and lower order than that, which. But it seems of a more common and lower order than that, which created those magnificent computing machines. Yet in Shaw's brain of the few seconds it took him to answer Chesterton, there took place a process called wit, which for speed and complexity far exceeds the capacity of all the computing machines used to send the American astronauts to the moon. This assertion may be surprising, yet this power of the human brain to give unexpected and amusing answers is due to its ability to scan memory and make random associations in a way which cannot be copied even by the fastest and biggest computers on Earth. The function of the brain cannot be copied because it is not understood. On the other hand, calculating machines were invented long before the birth of Christ. Those machines, or abaci, are still common in many places, from the Western nursery to the Eastern bazaar. They are easy to produce because the processes of the brain which they imitate are comparatively easy to understand. But this other curiously baffling process, which eludes the understanding and defies analysis, called wit, is only one part of an even more mysterious process which has fascinated human beings ever since men could put names to things: imaginative creation. Generally, the archetype of human creativeness is seen as those great works of art which are made within some grand tradition: the Beethoven Symphony, the Mozart opera, English poetry, the Russian novel, Elizabethan or Greek drama, Italian Renaissance painting. Men's admiration of these achievements of the imagination has often been strangely tinged with doubt or suspicion. The Greek philosopher Plato believed, for instance, that poets would be a disadvantage to the ideal state. He feared that poetry's power to arouse the emotions would be upsetting to an ideal society. There was a time, too, when the products of imagination were considered so powerful and inflammatory that young girls were not allowed to read novels for fear of the effect it would have on their minds, if not their morals. Exposure to the emotional excesses of the English Gothic there's more illustrations there. Novel was considered to be very bad for tender minds and even dangerous to the physical health. The publication of Goethe's The Sorrows of Young Werther was believed to have made suicide fashionable among romantic young European intellectuals of the late 18th century. Let's have a look at these illustrations here. Don't want to read the whole article out, do it, because I'm only doing a review of it. In this technological age, machines appear to be taking over more and more. This was in 1969 or 1970, this, of the roles which once only humans could perform, even the role of the artist. But this snail, produced by feeding into continuously varying mathematical programming to a computer, could not have been designed without the aid of a man's extremely subtle creative imagination. The Swiss painter Paul Klee, one of the greatest artistic innovators of the 20th century, said of art that it does not reproduce the visible, but makes visible. In paintings like Gargan at Night, he deliberately distorted natural forms in an attempt to give expression to his creative imagination and fantasy, and to a greater or lesser extent, all art tries to make visible the inner world of the mind. So, when I was at college in the 90s, they had something called CAD, Computer Aided Design. There's the other illustration there. There's some more illustrations. But once upon a time, there lived a farmer and his lovely daughter. Blowing, I don't know what word, That's the name of his daughter. I can't read it. But hard times, drought and disease had left him poor and unable to pay his yearly dues to the king. On the appointed day he set off with his daughter to the palace, filled with the fear that he surely must forfeit his farm. The king had already formed a deep affection for Elwyn, Elwyn, that's his name. And hearing the farmer's tale of woe, he saw the opportunity to gain. That's his daughter's name, Elwyn. Elwyn. Yeah. And hearing the farmer's tale of woe, he saw the opportunity to gain her hand in marriage. Yeah. I will give the. I will give you a chance, he said. From my purse I will take a ruby and an emerald. Elwyn must say which hand holds the emerald. If she chooses correctly, you may keep your farm. If not, she is mine. To this the farmer reluctantly agreed, but Elwyn was horrified to see the king take not an emerald and a ruby, but 2 rubies. When the king offered his 2 hands, she accepted one of the stones, but quickly dropped it so that it was lost in the pile of jewels. Apologising for her clumsiness, she explained that the stone remaining in the king's hand must show which one had been dropped. He won, and her father gained a reprieve. Elwyn had displayed lateral thinking. She thought around the problem instead of going for the obvious solution. This kind of thinking is reckoned to be responsible for some of the greatest breakthroughs in scientific thought. It is probably more creative and original than the more common logical vertical process. Now, some more illustrations in the magazine there. Portmeirion in North Wales is the architectural dream come true of Clough William Ellis. It is a defiant feat of the imagination in protest against the ugliness of industrialism, combining the most striking architectural styles of Europe. Anthony Gaudi tried to create in his architecture a sense of the movement of living forms. The Casa Miller, a luxury block of flats in Barcelona, is a typical example of his creative exuberance. Bruce Lacey's robot has acted in a play, and in a last glamorous role carries the shopping as well as Lacey's daughter. But it took a human's creative imagination to make her something she would never have. To the untutored, study for homage to a square form may seem mechanical. To the artist Joseph Albert, it is the expression of a very subtle imagination. Right. I've read a bit out of this article, before in the discussion on censorship. That's why it seemed. I've not done a review of this magazine before, but I've read out a bit of this article. Life Together, Grundy or Guardian. the hypocrisy of Victorian censorship was embodied in the fictitious Mrs. Grundy. Modern society is much more permissive, but do we still need moral guardians? When Oliver Cromwell above was Lord Protector of England, when the Puritans forbade bright clothes, plays, and many forms of merriment, the word puritanical has passed into the English language, meaning extremely strict in morals. Mrs. Grundy, a character from a play, became the symbol of Victorian hypocrisy. Let's have a bit of the read of the Plato, the ancient Greek philosopher, thought he had found the answer to the problem of censorship. His ideal society will be governed by guardians who will look after the morals, welfare and education of the citizens. But apart from the fact that this authoritarian solution will not be acceptable in the Western world of today, there is another difficulty, the question of who will be the guardian of the guardians. Thus, there are two separate questions. Firstly, is there a necessity for censorship? And secondly, who should be the censors? There are four main communication media: films, television and radio, theatre and printed matter, particularly books and newspapers, all with their own problems. By and large, the film industry censors itself, though most countries have some form of outside body which is in to its own fairly liberal rich code of what is and what is not allowed on the screen. Such organisations as the League of Catholic Decency exert by far the most pressure. The film companies have found it impossible to get a film shown coast to coast without its seal of approval. In Britain, however, there is a central board of censors. This was set up after a law about fire regulations was interpreted by the courts to allow local councils to control exactly which films were shown. This proved so unworkable that a central board was set up, which controlled both the political and the moral content of the films. Some of their cuts seem ludicrous today. In the 1930s, for example, films which hold up British officers and civilians in an odious light as regards their conduct in India were banned. But the dangers of political censorship are well illustrated by the board's banning of anti-Nazi films just before the Second World War. In the 1950s and 1960s, however, the board has restricted itself to cutting films only on moral grounds, and year by year it is becoming more permissive. Denmark is the only country which has totally abolished censorship of any form with regard to the making of films, and the only restriction on the showing of the films is that they should have some artistic merit or be shown in clubs. An interesting sidelight on this new law is that the majority of films produced are for export, particularly to Germany and Britain. Unfortunately, there are no figures to show how this new attitude has affected the Danish population as a whole. Regarding Denmark, they actually didn't have a law against sexual relations with animals until 2015, and there was actually a pornographic film which which was its street name was Animal Farm, and it was imported into Britain from Denmark. But it's very, very illegal over there. But in Denmark, it was completely acceptable. Television, and to a lesser extent radio, is a special case. I've one of my Facebook friends told me she'd seen it and she thought it was vile. Television, and to a lesser extent radio, is a special case in the communications field, in that the material is received passively by the audience. With books, films, and the theatre, people have to make an effort to be entertained, while in most homes the television is on, regardless of what is pouring out of it. An American presidential report published in 1969 by the National Commission on the Causes and Prevention of Violence stated, "Violence on television encourages violent forms of behaviour and fosters moral and social values about violence in daily life, which are unacceptable in civilised society." There's been a great deal of controversy about the need for some sort of supervision over the programme content, and this is the first report to come out heavily on the side of censorship. In America, of course, there is the unofficial censorship exerted by the advertising sponsors of the programmes. On one occasion, the singer Petula Clark kissed the Negro singer Harry Belafonte on the cheek, and the sequence was cut on the demand of the sponsors. Whatever censorship is lifted in a country, it tends to be removed first from the theatre. This is probably because of the restricted size of the audience and its tendency to be more discriminating. Nudity is now such a commonplace on the stage that Equity, the actors' union, has laid down a set of rules to be followed by theatre managements at auditions. The trend today seems to be away from censorship, at least in Western countries. In communist states, it is different, of course. There, the party bosses can be relied on to keep a close eye on the state of cultural affairs and to crack down on any dangerous deviation from the norm of socialist realism. In such countries as South Africa, where they consider themselves to be in a permanent state of war, censorship is particularly strong. All film, plays and printed matter go through the Central News Agency, a government body which watches over everything. Among other things, they banned Black Beauty, the story of a horse, presumably thinking that it was a Black Power political tract. In Australia, there is no internal censorship, but the customs have the power to stop anything coming in. Thus, it was forbidden at one time to read the books Fanny Hill, while it was simultaneously being published in instalments by the Australian magazine Oz. Definitions of obscenity and indecency vary enormously from time to time and place to place. Usually, however, legal argument pivots on establishing what has a tendency to deprave and corrupt. Recent changes in British law relating to obscenity and indecency in printed matter require the offending passages in question to be considered not in isolation, but in relation to the work as a whole, to the artistic quality and social value of which expert witnesses may testify. The first and most famous test case ensured that D.H. Lawrence's public reputation was usually distorted into that of the author of Lady Chatterley's Lover, and helped the publishers to sell some 2 million copies of this by no means great novel, when the conclusion of the trial had freed it from the threat of legal suppression. The long drawn-out trial of last exit to Brooklyn, which ended happily for the author and his English publishers, had the similar effect of drawing to the book the attention of a far wider public than it would otherwise have reached. But both cases showed very clearly that the attempts to liberalise the law had merely seen confusion worse confounded, and ensured that resort to due process of law on whatever level would, in effect, amount to a stunning sales promotion campaign based on those very aspects of the book which had led to a prosecution. Yeah. Two men stare fascinated into the dirty bookshop in Soho, London. Not only will the books and magazines be very expensive, but they will not be as frank as a purchaser might expect. Customs officials seize foreign imports daily, and the police have the power to raid these bookshops at any time. Vultures was the first play in London after stage censorship had been lifted to show male and female nude action as opposed to tableau. It was performed on property belonging to the Church of England, who protested vociferously. Slogans on walls are usually painted out as soon as they appear in Stockholm. Above, one wall has been left for people to write exactly what they like. The film The Wild Angels, enthusiastically received by the critics, was refused a certificate in Britain because of its portrayal of anarchistic and nihilistic attitudes in ways that might be harmful to impressionable young people. I think if you look on the BBFC website, you'll find that film has actually been passed since then. I've got another article here. Aid for the addicted. Encouraging the patient to express himself in any way he wishes is an important step in the treatment of young addicts. At a drug treatment centre in London, those who attend are given art materials to paint and draw. The subjects chosen very often reflect the problems on their minds, left a drawing clearly representing an addict's major worry, his next fix. Aid for the addicted, medicine of. I'm not going to read any of it because it's. I'm not going to. It's just. This is just a review of the magazine. There have always been addicts, and probably there always will be. The benefits of modern society bring an apparently increasing problem. What can we do? For Miss Point onwards, I'll just show you the. I'm not going to read any of the articles from Miss Point onwards because it will take up too much time. I'll just show the illustrations in them. And drug treatment centres often provide a special fixing room for the patients who attend to at least make possible injections in conditions of reasonable hygiene. Sterile syringes are provided, and the dangers of fixing in unclean circumstances are continually emphasised. Addicts are encouraged to try other, less potent drugs as a substitute for heroin. But many resent this as a form of interference, as they resent all authority, and great tact and patience are necessary. Many other people who turn up at drug treatment centres are ex-addicts or simply friends or relations of patients. The help which they give by joining in group discussions of common or personal problems is invaluable. A psychiatrist is available much of the time to lend a sympathetic ear and offer advice. Social workers attached to the unit may visit patients in their own homes and will attempt to find suitable employment if a person is out of work. Enemies of man, the other man's poison. As to some normally harmless substances, flowers, pets, even food spell danger. Although doctors cannot prevent allergies, drugs can help control the symptoms. I was wondering if there's anyone watching this now who's allergic to anything, who's got any allergies. Almost anything can provoke an allergic reaction. Small organisms in seawater sometimes produce dogger bank itching. Fishermen, even the sun can lead to trouble. This boy cannot play outside because his skin reacts to sunlight. Occupations have their own hazards. Farmer's lung is caused by spores in mouldy hay. Special non-allergic cosmetics must be used if ordinary makes cause a rash. Fluid released in a localized reaction may cause a blister. Finding the cause of an allergy is an important part of treatment. In the patch test, possible allergens, substances which may cause a reaction are held against the skin for 2 days to see which affect it. Allergen solutions can also be injected. Any reaction reaches a peak in 15 minutes and is noted. Once the troublesome allergen is known, the doctor can give desensitizing injections to help the patient avoid situations which may bring on an attack. Oh. The child and his world. Problems of learning. A difficulty with the basic skill of reading can handicap even an intelligent child in his studies, but there are special facilities to help slow readers. Are specific learning problems are diagnosed in increasing numbers of children. More remedial facilities, such as the Word Blind Centre in London, are being established with the guidance of specialised teachers. Children with language problems can correct specific difficulties. This student is able to pronounce words aloud, but questions from his teacher reveal that he has not understood the meaning of the words he has just read. The teacher will work out a program to increase his comprehension. Remedial centres have a wide variety of techniques and equipment to fit the needs of individual students. A child can help to train his eye in recognising letters by tracing each one with his finger as he sounds out parts of a word. Another pupil may have no difficulty with reading and writing, but by writing a story for his teacher, he indicates a problem with spelling. Many words are not spelled the way they are pronounced, and children may need the help of a simple study aids to familiarise themselves with the relationships of sounds and letter combinations. Oh. You can get these magazines off eBay. You know, that's where I got them from. I don't know if my reviews of them are going to boost the sales of them at all. I mean, they are outdated really, because they're from 1969 and 1970, and you can find more up-to-date information online, but they're interesting things to have in your home. A child with special language problems may have exceptional abilities in other non-verbal skills. His teacher may discover that he is a talented artist. She may then ask him to practice spelling by describing and labelling his latest drawing. The boy bolsters his confidence by showing off what he can do well, while at the same time he works to connect his difficulty with words. The Stilitron is a self-correcting device. With it, the child can test his own ability to identify the sounds which go together to make up words. As he pronounces the sound which goes with the picture, he touches the coloured square where the correct Anyway, okay, you can pause it and just read it for yourself. I don't have to read it out loud. I've got all of it on the screen, so you can. Some more illustrations there. Working to correct any. What I may as well do is just get the whole lot on the screen, so that you can. But pause it, and you can read it for yourself. The embryo becomes a living body. The embryo becomes a baby. We were all embryos at one time, weren't we? I don't remember what it was like being an embryo. None of us can, because I don't think we even had a brain yet. At 4 weeks, the human embryo is unrecognisable, but just 4 weeks later, all its organs and I need some coffee. Well, it's not going to take very much longer for me to finish off reviewing this magazine now. Yeah, I'll put a bit of the there. You can read that for you. You can just pause it, and then you can read it for the information for yourself. No, of course I'm not. See, I've got it on screen, so you can pause it and read it if you. 4 weeks. If you want to read the whole magazine, you have to send off for it off eBay or somewhere. And all 4 weeks, at 4 weeks, the human embryo is unrecognisable. But just 4 weeks later, all its organs and tissues are formed. It is a month of incredible change. It looks like a house lizard. Yeah, more illustrations there. Yeah, I get that bit on this. See, you can just read that for yourself, can't you? That bit of writing there. Right. See, that explains, that bit of writing now explains how the brain develops. And the diagram shows us how the brain develops as well. See, that's the development of a digestive system. That shows how it develops. Well, what's crazy? What do you think is crazy? Why have you put that's crazy? Every edition of these magazines has part of like an encyclopedia. So it's all in alphabetical order. You see, if you've got the full set of the magazines, all 105 parts, you can look up all these names in the back of it because it's got like an encyclopedia, a weekly encyclopedia in the back. See there, you've got hypnosis, hysterectomy, hysteria, heart failure, heartburn and heat stroke. So that's part 48 of the Book of Life. Yeah, that's true. Human body is beautiful, but it terrifies me how fragile we are, in a good way. Yeah. It's like how many parts? 105. It was originally published from 1969 to 90. 105 weekly parts. Part 48. I can't. It's difficult. Part 48. This one is.